Alrighty, assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. So my name's Khalid Safir. We got Bashir all the way from America. How you doing, Bashir?
I'm doing great, Alhamdulillah.
Awesome. So you're on your phone. I appreciate you uh, making it, even though you're not at home at the moment. Um, so we've got a question, which is the censorship that we have in the Ahmadiyya community. Is it a sign that we are a cult? So I'm an Ahmadi Muslim. Bashir is not one. He used to be. He's an ex-Ahmadi. Um, I'm very direct. People don't really know me probably off live stream, but I'm very direct with top people, even with Hazur. I think Hazur likes me. He's always been supporting my material for a very long time. And even if I've disagreed with Hazur in meetings directly with him. It's like, we can have different opinions and things. Um, but let's just see how it goes. And so we've already got a question. I'll try to get the involvement. This is a live stream for a reason, that we should be getting the live chat, especially since we don't have that much live chat. So Sabah Huck says, are you saying Ahmadiyya is a cult? You'll find out in a second. I'm going to basically, you know what? When I start talking too loosely, I never get my content done. So I'm going to read stuff. Then you can ask me questions. Yes and no kind of thing would be an answer to most questions. Less, but let me say why I don't just talk about things for no reason. Everything I do, most of my conversations are with Westerners, where I talk about how to use Islam as a tool to make the world a better place. I'm not into random intellectual conversations about trying to be clever. I'm not a big fan of even did Jesus die on the cross kind of thing, because I think even as Ahmadis, we focus on that too much. We don't focus on helping the world. That is a serious issue if you think about if we're supposed to be kind people and people are dying of suicide at record levels in the West, we should be doing something about it. So that's kind of like my background, but I also talk to Muslims out of responsibility. I do feel like, um, unfortunately, Muslims have become like the Jews of the past, where they don't think too logically. But anyway, you know what? I'm going to read my stuff because I did say Bashir's gonna. We've got a format where I'm going to read my stuff, and Bashir will say something. We'll listen to the chat and whatever, is all that kind of stuff. So let me zoom in so Bashir can see this as well. I will be posting this document in the pinned comment in my live stream afterwards. Here we go. So censorship, is that proof that Ahmadis are a cult? Why talk about this? The Ahmadi Muslim community has the best understanding of Islamic solutions. We can argue about that. We're doing a long series of stuff to prove that, right? But that's my statement for now. To the Islamic solutions to the world problems, but the censorship in the last few decades of the UK leadership. So I'm particularly talking about the UK because that's where I've lived, and I've recently moved to Jordan, where there's a small community, but not much happened, for whatever reason. So the UK leadership of the community has dumbed down the community, so much that next to nobody in the community has the ability to explain the benefits of Islam in recorded debates like I do. So basically, nobody else does what I do. I'd I'd love to be wrong. Promise you, I don't really like doing live streams. I do it out of duty, especially because nobody else is doing what I'm doing. This is not true of the Khalifa. So when I say UK leadership, very different from the Khalifa, who's he's not even UK leadership, it's international leadership. Okay, so who is the Khalifa? People don't know. He is the international leader of the Ahmadi Muslim community. So this is not true of the Khalifa, who is the opposite of those in authority under him. Censorship wasn't so bad when I was a teenager. I recommend leadership in the Ahmadi Muslim community in the UK, I should have said, to be changed regularly so they do not consider that authority their right and therefore abuse it. And I'm going to explain in more detail what I mean by abusing that authority. But I don't like to talk too much. I want to make sure people roughly get what I'm talking about. Bashir, does it make any sense what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? Is it confusing?
No, you're very clear and lucid, and everything you said is very accurate in terms of the censorship and how who's in charge of the Ahmadiyya movement. And some people don't fall under the category. You're an example, probably because you're a laid back. People know you very well, so yeah, you nailed all the points, brother.
Cool. Yep. So I'm going to talk about the three categories of censorship. I'll loosely mention them. You already said people who don't fit in the category. So I've always been an outsider, even though people know Hazur literally written a letter to support my work, and the UK Jamaat doesn't support what I do, unfortunately. But that's kind of it shows something. But there's three categories of censorship. This is direct censorship. You can't talk to anybody. And even within that, there's so many different categories. Like you shouldn't talk to Bashir. Bashir is this our friend here. And then there's a category kind of censorship, like who's allowed to talk, who gets support, who gets, you know, uh, like whose videos get proliferated, within the community and things like that. And then finally, there's a cultural censorship. So within families, you're not allowed to say anything about this topic, that topic. Otherwise, they do get very angry and rude. That's my experience, which is unfortunate. And I'm pointing these out. I don't want to sidetrack too much, but I'm pointing at that because I want people to change, because this is not the way Ahmadi Muslims are supposed to be. Much of what we're doing is not right. So anyway, let me explain it in more detail, what I just said here. When I was in London a few times a year. Okay, yeah, sure. When I was in London, a few times a year, around 500 men. I wrote this very quickly, so hopefully this makes sense. So when I was in London, a few times a year, around 500 Ahmadi men who are over 40 years old. So there's a category called the Ansar, and I'm over 40 now. Okay, so we would all go, 500 of us, to central London. This would be what we call our region, to preach. Okay, if someone, and this is to explain this idea of censorship and whatever, right? And the dumbing down of the community. And so where am I? So if someone had 40 years to understand Islam and cannot explain it, then that person does not care about Islam. So I'm going to explain how many people don't seem to know the basics of the benefits of Islam. They are just Muslims for social or other benefits. Except for me, none of these 500 men who would go along with me to preach, okay, could explain Islam to Westerners who wanted to ask questions about Islam. All inquirers would be sent to me. This is not definitely not me showing off. This is me being disappointed. The reason they are unable to answer questions because they are only encouraged to memorize facts rather than have any regular. So they're encouraged to memorize facts, and they don't have regular classes where Ahmadis can openly discuss issues without being insulted or censored. There's no open space. People are scared to ask questions and things like that. And you might think they're not scared, but people just don't ask questions. There's a reason. Yeah, they don't want to look stupid, whatever. They don't want to ask controversial questions, and the controversial questions are the ones that need to be asked. The Ahmadi leadership focus on a few public events where Ahmadis can show off, rather than regular private classes to teach Ahmadis. The UK Ahmadi leadership clearly do not value these small classes, demonstrating they are unaware of Islamic teachings like Take up good deeds only as much as you are able, for the best deeds are those done regularly, even small. That's from Hadith from Prophet Muhammad. This is why Ahmadis do not know why they are Ahmadis, and the leadership must be changed. So I don't know if that explains things. This is me just trying my best to give an idea of how I'm trying to do it in as few words as possible to demonstrate that people really don't understand why they're Ahmadis. In fact, I'm desperately trying not just to explain it more, but like even the current Khalifa made a website, or no, that's wrong. The current Khalifa knew that Ahmadis don't understand why they're Ahmadis, and he wanted to campaign to fix that, but the leadership, all they did was make a website instead of running classes like they're supposed to. That's part of the institution. Okay, they didn't do that. You don't make a website if you want to teach a million people. You don't go like, you don't send your school kids to just go to a website. You run classes. So I'm talking more than I want to. I'm trying to control that. Yeah, any thoughts?
No, and once again, I think you nailed it. There should be proper training instead of reading off a script. You should be able to engage with someone honestly, and not have to focus on talking points or et cetera, et cetera. Just to be sort of loose with someone, open and honest. And when I was growing up, there was no Quran classes at the local masjid. Um, my dad taught me the Quran, but I think some people had came from Pakistan in like 2013 to LA, to the LA Jamaat, and then they came to Bay Point where I was, and they were lamenting. They said 99% of the MDs in LA can't read the Quran, and he even
Oh
said,
wow,
yeah, and I don't know if that's true. I'm not there in Chino or LA to know sort of what's going on, right? So or maybe he said 90%, and then he like got up and said this in front of, like, at the end of a general meeting. He wanted to talk, like, and that was weird because people don't really get that opportunity. But he was a guy from Rabwa, and then he even said, if you can't read the Quran, you're not Muslim. And I was like, what is he talking about? That's not true, because as we all know, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam
so,
couldn't he had it all memorized, but he couldn't read the Arabic,
sure,
you know,
yeah,
and many Sahaba couldn't read the Arabic script, and my grandmother and grandfather were illiterate, and about 200 years ago, I think 90% of the world was illiterate. So
interesting. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
like, they focused on memorization, and maybe they could only memorize things. So I was blown away with what the guy was saying. And then my own experience in 2005, 2006, I started reading about the Lahori Amnis, and I went to the local masjid, and I asked the imam, and I said, hey, I have questions about the book Ik Galti Ka Azala. Can you help me out? And he shunned me in front of everyone. In front of everyone, he said, you're not an Amdi. He said this at like a general meeting, just because I asked a question.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Well, what do you mean I'm not an MD?" He says, "You didn't sign the bath form," and I was like, "What bath? I'm born an MD. I don't sign bath
Yeah.
form." He said, "No, the Khalifa
Yeah.
in 2003, and you didn't renew yours." And I'm like, "Well,
Interesting.
this is the first I've heard of it." you know,
Yeah, I've never heard of something like that. I mean, I have heard something in some places they've done that, where there were like in a local area to here, Kababir, I think there were a lot of issues, so everybody had to re-sign the bayat form. But let me just answer. Okay, so you made an interesting point that some people couldn't read the. I mean, it's not the main point like that we're covering, but you said that some people can't read the Quran, or a lot of people in America couldn't read the Quran. Maybe there's different issues in different places. But actually, one thing I skipped was that I was really disappointed that we don't have intellectual classes where we, besides memorizing things, we should be looking at this verse, one verse at a time, and saying, what does it mean? Let's discuss it. Let's be interested in this stuff, right? And the only classes we have are people reading the Quran. I think that's too basic, because it should be for children. Maybe in America, because they've been separated from, I don't know, there are roots or something that they've lost the ability to read the basics of the Quran. But I learned it when I was like 6 years old or something, right? But I think people over 40 should be doing more than that. So let me quickly respond to these comments. Are you saying Ahmadiyya is a cult? No, I'm not saying Ahmadiyya is a cult, but I'm saying the behavior is like a cult. That is very inward looking, a lot of censorship, and also a lot of hate to anybody who speaks out and says differently to the main, narrative or main ideas, even though a lot of those ideas are against the actual teachings of the Quran. A lot of people just don't know. Ahmadis are not, haven't done their own studies. And for example, I don't know, there's a lot of issues between people who believed in COVID or not. It's not part of the religion to believe that you have to wear a mask and have to take the injections and things. And anyway, so Tayo, so Ahmadis are a cult. No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, I'll quickly respond in the sense that the Khalifa, our main leader, he does so many of his meetings in public on TV, right? But our leadership aren't as transparent. So that's the kind of thing, in short, that we need to change. Let me just keep whizzing through things. Let's see how it goes. To be clear, most Ahmadis, with their lack of interest in why they are Ahmadis, make me want to leave the Ahmadi Muslim community. I should have said, yeah, in the past had made me want to leave the Ahmadi Muslim community. This problem is known by the Khalifa, who advised fixing this issue of people who don't know why they are Ahmadis. The UK Ahmadi leadership simply made a website called whyahmadi.org. Instead of engaging people in small and regular classes, the website only explained what an Ahmadi was, not why being an Ahmadi is beneficial. So it didn't really get to the point, really. I feel like maybe it's not, what I'm saying is not getting to the crux of the matter, but it's kind of like a quick intro. Why are we talking about this? If I was trying to simplify it, I think, as I said kind of in the beginning, Ahmadi Muslims, what I see as true Islam, has so much benefit, but we are falling so far short that most people who are Ahmadi Muslims aren't even educated enough. And the reason why they're not educated enough is because they've been censored so much that they've just been dumbed down. And they've, of course, censored themselves, different cultural reasons. So Ahmadi Muslims are amongst the nicest people, so I'm trying to be balanced here. They are amongst the nicest people there are because they've been raised with mottos like love for all and hatred for none, which is the opposite to most Muslims and Western culture. So a lot of Muslims that I've had the experience of, you know this Tayo as well. Tayo's from London, met me at Speaker's Corner. That Muslims are generally quite violent and they threaten me, even though all I'm there is to, debate politely as possible. And also Western culture is not particularly loving because, people don't like to even talk to the neighbors. People don't like to talk to their parents. So it's a very important message, love for all and hatred for none, but we should have love for everybody. And so just because I'm being very direct and saying there are problems, it doesn't mean I love all my Ahmadi brothers and sisters. It's just I've always been very clear and direct, and I'm not very. So a lot of people who I would consider Ahmadis are tribal, that they only say something is wrong when they see other people do it, but they dare not say it when they're or Ahmadis are doing it themselves. So I point out the truth wherever it is, and this is part of the attitude we're taught in the Quran. So some Ahmadi Muslims might not be happy about an Ahmadi arguing against the behavior of Ahmadis. That is the wrong attitude. And I'll tell you something, the person who says the most amongst the Ahmadi Muslims about what Ahmadi Muslims are doing wrong is the Khalifa. You should just think about that, how many times he's been correcting people. So O ye who believe, be strict in observing this from the Quran about being truthful, which even if it's against yourself. So, O ye believe, be strict in observing justice and be witnesses for Allah, even though it be against yourself or against your parents and relatives. Quran 4:136. So some people have a different numbering system. They don't include the first verse as a verse of the Quran. So easy way is just to go to this document, click on the verse, and you'll see the actual verse in the Quran, the online version of the Quran. So essentially what this verse is saying, be strict in telling the truth, even if against your people. Many Ahmadi Muslims think that we should only tell the truth, I've already said this, if it is in our favor. That is not honest and goes again, is against the teachings of the Quran. We know this value when it comes to whistleblowers and good journalism. So we know what good journalism is. They tell the truth wherever they see it, against whoever it is. They're not biased to any particular group. They're not supposed to be anyway. So anyway, as I said, there's three kinds of censorship that we find in the Ahmadi Muslim community. Here we go. But the way I'm going to explain it is what our teachings are and how we're falling short of them. And I'm trying to give really simple examples. And by the way, I've been trying to talk to leadership for years. I know like most of the top people, but it's been falling on deaf ears for a very long time. So here we go. And you might say, why doesn't the Khalifa do something about it? I feel like I'm going to quickly explain that. The Khalifa is like a very kind father, and he doesn't want to reject anybody. So let's say I've got a son who's taking drugs. I'm not going to say, go away. You don't meet the standard of this family. I'm going to keep you in the family and try to do the best I can with you. I think that's the situation. I'm terrible as well. I've got millions of faults as well. I think that's a very important thing to point out. So if I'm pointing out issues in other people, people should realize they should accept their issues quickly. They should say, you know what, it's probably right. If somebody said I've got issues, I'll be like, yeah, probably, right? And it's the quickest way to learn and improve yourself if you care about coming close to God. Anyway, so the promised Messiah. So we believe Ahmadi Muslims are special in the sense we believe in the second coming of Jesus. We call it the promised Messiah. The promised Messiah promoted intellectual and lively debate that is based on respect. A quote written on the back of every copy of the magazine Review of Religion. So we've got a magazine called Review of Religions, and that's what it says, that we should have lively intellectual debate. Yet this instruction is never followed. They are typical of Ahmadi institutions that censor in the following ways. So what I'm trying to say here is we've got the person who started off this magazine called Review of Religions, the Promised Messiah, so over 100-year-old magazine. And on the back is what its mission statement is. And the people who run it, and I know them very well, do exactly the opposite. So they exclude people with alternative ideas, even though that is their mission statement. And I'm trying to say the words carefully because they do put in quotes from different religions, but it's not the people who are speaking on behalf of those religions. Our own people, straw man or whatever you want to call it, they quote on behalf of other religions, but that's not a very solid way of having a debate. Like if I wanted to have a debate with the next Ahmadi, I don't take Bashir's words and then make an article on it. I'll have Bashir come and say what he wants to say the way he wants to say it. Don't quote on the Promised Messiah didn't want, this relatively weak form of debate. Okay, so I was told the reason for this lack of intellectual debate by a top official of the Review of Religions. I could name people, but I'm not because I don't think it's necessary. And these people probably know who they are, right? Okay, he said that Ahmadis are not intellectual enough to compete with non-Ahmadis. Interesting. This is true because most Ahmadis focus on theological issues, not practical life issues. So if they're going to debate, what are people interested in? They're not interested. There's only so many times you can talk about the Trinity and things like that and the death of Jesus. There are endless big issues happening in the world right now, saving the environment, for example, okay, relationship problems. These are the things that people want to know the answers to, and we have the answers to. And unfortunately, our people are stuck in like 1950s when they're still talking about death of Jesus as if they're still Christians in the UK. It's the fastest dying religion, so I think we should move on. Anyway, so they can fix that. They can talk about more issues, okay? But if they want to fix it, the way I've written it is terrible. But if they want to fix their problems, they shouldn't exclude people like me who are interested in such issues. And I'll be explaining below. I don't know what I've written below. Anyway, we'll come to it. Does that make any sense? I don't know. I'm reading through my material, and I can see I've made a million typos as I'm going along. And so I'm trying to paraphrase it and clarify it. So we've got this review of religions, and they're not, there's a sort of censorship of other people's ideas. And that's not the way the Promised Messiah envisaged this magazine. You know, it's not the mission statement on the back of every copy of this magazine. And this very important person, who I know very well, he said, you know, we're not intellectual enough. And that's a pretty shocking statement to make. And I agree we're not intellectual enough because I see that nobody's practicing these discussions, you know, of wider issues. So you're muted. So, were you trying to talk?
No, I'm just talking to my buddy here. Just asked me a question.
Oh, okay, cool. So I don't know if you heard that. I mean, you got any opinions on it, or I can just move on to the next thing?
Well, brother, you're in the zone, and I kind of don't want to stop you. I got some notes, and I'll just discuss at the end.
Cool. Okay. I mean, I just think this thing is so long that I'm not sure if I'm even going to get to the end of it. So anytime you want to go through your notes is cool. Okay. Okay, so this is going to more of the, what's it called? The censorship, the kind of censorship that you were talking about, Bashir. So this magazine, and this magazine is typical of most institutions in the Ahmadiyya community. It excludes people who are, okay, I probably said it the wrong way. Basically, excludes yes, I have written it correctly. Excludes people who are not boring, basically, i.e. those who totally conform. So if you're a little bit interesting, you know, your opinions are slightly different. And I really think you have to be so boring to be on anything official of the Ahmadiyya community. Like, people try to be incredibly boring with their clothes and whatever, no personality. They always wear the same black caps. It's incredibly boring. And I'm not the only person who feels that way. There's one convert who will often wear a Father Christmas hat just to wind people up. He's just to demonstrate that, like, you guys are wearing funny hats, I'm going to wear a funny hat. Do you realize what's going on? But I don't think many of the Pakistani Ahmadis don't get it. Yeah, you have to be a total conformist for your opinions to be voiced at all in any format. And I'll give you a weird example. So I was excluded from the review of religions. I wrote one article on the happiness revolution. It's still there, based on the Quran and Hadith, the steps to finding happiness in this life. And I was excluded after that because I made a video on my personal YouTube channel. Whereas this YouTube channel, how personal is it? It's up to you, but it's my YouTube channel. Okay, where I was shaving my hair on my head during COVID when barbers were unavailable. I don't know if people had that issue there. Okay, and I did it for a reason as well, because I was trying to demonstrate some detachment and things like that, and people understood it, right? But I was called by a top authority in the review of religions when he saw this video, and his relative also, and they tried to convince me to take the video down. Okay. And they said, this is an issue. I don't know if we can let you carry on writing for religion because we need very, you know, blah, blah, blah. And one of them said what the Quran says doesn't matter. So I said, listen, give me a reason, a logical reason why I should take this video down. Because I haven't got my top on, but I've got my trousers on, and I'm shaving my hair and I'm doing it for a point. But one of them said the Quran doesn't matter, and essentially said Pakistani culture is more important. And both essentially believe this opinion. These are, you know, important people, right? So this is a typical, you might be surprised by this, but if you delve in it, like, we are very strongly controlled by Pakistani culture. Very little interest in what the Quran actually says, is my experience, and this is just one example. Um, and this is what I've had so much censorship, and I don't do things against the Quran. But anyway, let me just quickly go through some of the comments. There should have been an early notification that there will be this live stream going on right now. I don't know. I mean, I put this live stream up a few days ago, didn't I? Bashir, I think. Can't remember.
Yeah, yeah, but I think they're saying because I don't think you have a Twitter account. Do you have a Twitter account?
I have a Twitter account. I had one of my original Twitter account hijacked or something because I'm not very good with password. So then I made a new one called Khalid Safir X, because it's called X now. And I live stream it on that, but I don't really check the Twitter account. I'm not very good with that. I don't know. Does that make notifications or something? I don't know.
Well, because then it's public, everyone can see. And I didn't tweet about it either, or I didn't put it out anywhere, because I was just busy with a bunch of stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't even know. I don't even know how to put it out. So, okay. So, salams to you, Bashir. What else is here? Brother Bashir, could you shed some light? I've heard at the paying of membership fee gets you VIP passes. What does this include? Just curious. I mean, I don't think that's true. I mean, I tell you what, you know what? I was gonna have a bit of a sense. I've got a sense of humor. I think the things I'm saying about the community are gonna be more effective than anything Bashir has said, because sometimes the stuff Bashir says, sometimes people can question, but the stuff I'm saying, like, everybody knows is true. They've kind of experienced this, so this is kind of general stuff. um, or maybe they didn't say it out aloud. Like, people have to be incredibly boring to be on our official channels and things. But anyway, also salams to Brother Khalid. Welcome, salam. Okay, it's nice of you to say salam to everybody. Okay, no worries. Temporary backup says good YouTube name. There should have been. Okay, yeah. Okay, cool. So what were you were nodding along? Did you want to say anything, Bashir? So I got a personal channel. I just shaved my hair off. I didn't have my top on. Blah blah blah. And now I can't even talk on review. I can't write for review religions, and nobody cares if it's to do with Islam or not. Any thoughts, Bashir?
Yeah, well, the Jamaat is very tough like that. If anything seems out of the ordinary, I think the fourth Khalifa had once said if someone doesn't have a beard, that they can't be on the stage to do anything. So and some, like Asian cultures, they don't are some of they don't have facial hair. So
Oh, that's an interesting point. I think they would have let him off, but I think what it was, there was becoming a fashion at that time, and I found it strange. I remember, you're right, actually. So I found it strange at that time. Like, why do we have to have a beard, right? But a lot of Sunni Muslims will be saying, you know what, that's right, you should have a beard, right? Because it was just fashionable in the 80s and whatever to not have ever beard at all. So it's like, okay, if you're going to represent us on TV and whatever, look like a Muslim. So I don't think that's wrong. It's just setting some standards. And what the Khalifa I see does essentially is guide people in the right direction. Sometimes fashion goes this way, that way. There was a time when everybody, I don't know if you remember, or maybe the fashion was different. In England, we used to really wear really short shorts, everybody. That was normal. Like, shorts were like really short. And it was like, wear dress properly. There's things, things are, we sometimes follow Western fashions and don't realize it subconsciously. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with the Khalifa at the time saying, have a beard. I felt weird. I have to agree. I tell you lots of things. I felt weird. I remember the fourth Khalifa saying, do not tell racist jokes. And I used to tell racist jokes. It used to be normal to tell racist jokes. We don't tell jokes against Irish people and stuff like that. It was normal in England. And then now I'm looking back, it's like, oh yeah, it's not good to tell racist jokes, But it used to be normal in those days, in the 1980s and 1990s. So I agree with those things. But anyway, last point is sticking on review of religions. Just again, it's just an example of an institution that behaves in a certain way that most institutions in the what's it called, the Ahmadi Muslim community behave like. They said the result is review religions is filled with articles that are repetitive, not bringing any new insight, as only boring conformists are allowed to write. So I suppose that's just kind of the result of what's happened. It's just the same old stuff again and again. Not very thoughtful people. Okay, there's some technically good articles, but they're like from things like, the solar eclipse, like just 100 years ago. They just wrote it up nicely, that's all, but nothing particularly intellectual. Anyway, okay, I'm not even finished with review religions yet. So promotes terrible writers who are from important groups. Okay, so hopefully I'm not being too boring here, but yeah, so you have to be an important person, and then those same people get promoted to do everything, and they really write rubbish articles. It's terrible. I've seen so many terrible articles. So for example, I wrote one article on happiness, and then somebody else from a group called the Rational Religion, have you ever heard of them? Okay, and I'm going to talk about that like it's just one family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Steyer Nasser, his brother, and actually there's like a bunch of people. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's mainly one family, and then like recently they allowed one other person in who I'm not sure if he's the same family. So I'll be talking about that. But it's kind of like there's an in group, and so they're pushed to do these different articles, and sometimes they write really bad, rubbish stuff. Like this particular person, he said, follow these steps, his version of it, and you should try my ideas out because you have nothing better to do. It's like I'm trying to summarize very quickly. Maybe it's not coming across, I don't know, but some terrible articles, because it's kind of like the best way to describe it is very inbred. Like if you have only one or two people who all agree with each other and they never tell each other if they're doing a bad job, then it's kind of like you're just going to do lots of rubbish stuff and nobody's going to tell you when you're doing it wrong. And these people don't take criticism very well either. So anyway, the Khalifa is open and has always supported me, even when the lower authorities are against me. So I was going to read my letter. I really should have prepared this. You know what? I won't bother. I was sent a letter from the Khalifa. You know what? Let me see if I can find it really quickly without going to my WhatsApp pictures. I'm sure I kept it in the place, and then I'll try to. It might be worth reading really quickly. Personal. Was it Hazur letters? Have I got it here? Come on. Letter. No, not that one. I should have been more prepared. I had it in my mind and then I totally forgot. Okay, well, let me see date. That would be a good way because they're relatively new. Me, beard. Never mind. Okay, never mind. Okay, so all Ahmadi Muslims were stopped. Okay, so here we go for more elements of direct censorship. All Ahmadi Muslims were stopped from their free speech in Speaker's Corner. So were you aware of that? Yeah. A famous place for debates in London, England, by a person whose job was to help them do more. So let me explain that very badly written sentence. So there's a person who said, all of you guys, all of you Ahmadi Muslims in the UK, London, wherever, you're not allowed to go to Speaker's Corner, finished, right? And his job is to help people, not stop people. Okay, this is more censorship. It's very boring, and I'm not the only person who's getting frustrated with this attitude. I spoke to him, by the way. I'm going to mention him later on. We had a couple of interesting conversations. As I said, I know all the top people anyway. So leadership amongst the Ahmadi Muslim community in the UK, etc., think they should be followed blindly. So this is a major issue. I really want the leadership to realize that what I think is they don't read the Quran, they don't contemplate on these things, and they don't realize how flawed their belief system is, which lets them carry on the way they do. Like, you really do feel that they expect you just to listen to them blindly. So I'll quickly look at this. What's this? Were they stopped because of how poorly they did, or was it another reason? Yeah, okay. So I like to answer things directly. There's one of our friends who was there, and he was basically losing debates left, right, and center. He was like really terrible. He's a nice guy. I spoke to him. I tried to talk to him, but you know, the more I think about it, not everybody is completely able to logically go through a debate. Okay, so he didn't even understand when he was saying talking points, but he didn't put them in order, and yeah, it was going terrible. But I'm a big. One of my friends, it was recorded on YouTube. He said like he had enough of listening to this guy doing a terrible debate, and he said like I'm going to take over. And I said, you know what we need to do is have more Ahmadis doing more good stuff and not stopping anybody from doing their stuff. Like if somebody's messing up, and none of the missionaries, and all you call it missionaries, murabbis, whatever, right? I know you made a point about why we're using the word missionaries, so we don't use that term anymore because it is a Christian term. They were literally scared of coming to Speaker's Corner, including some of the really top people, because they're fearing losing a debate because they're not practiced and things like this. I think that's the wrong attitude. You can learn and get better, and we do have the answers, but you need to practice. And so all of my short answer is yes, somebody was messing up, but I don't believe in stopping that person. I believe in more people going out and giving the right answer. So if 99 people are giving the right answer, one person's getting the wrong answers or not very good at producing the answers, then that resolves the problem. Don't stop people. I think it's a very dangerous thing to start doing. Right, it's not everyone's strength. Yeah, it's not easy to always debate. Because debate is actually very mathematical. I would describe it as to have a logical argument that follows what A, B, C, D. It's not actually natural conversation. O ye who believe, obey Allah and obey His Messenger and those who are in authority among you. And if you differ in anything among yourselves, refer it to Allah and His Messenger. If you are believers in Allah and the last day, that is best and most commendable in the end. So how is this an argument to say you don't follow leadership blindly? First of all, leadership is important in Islam. Okay, this is what this is saying. But also, there's different levels of leadership, and I'm going to try to stick to my script. So there are different levels of authority from God, who's the infallible, to lesser, more fallible authorities. Okay, if people don't understand that or even agree with that interpretation of the verse, then think about this. In Hitler's Germany, many crimes were committed in the name of listening to authority. So one authority in the Quran is government, and Hitler was government. Do you listen to Hitler blindly? No. So you do have to take you have a personal duty to check if the authorities you're obeying are obeying the laws of God. So there's a hierarchy, and if the lower levels of authority are not obeying the ultimate authority, which is God, then you don't have to listen. And yeah, I mean, people might go, oh, especially these leaders, they might say, oh, we say things perfectly. Really? Are you really that perfect? I mean, my own experience, they're not very much in line with what the Khalifa is saying himself. So any thoughts about that?
Yeah,
What do you think about
comment,
blind? Go on.
If I remember correctly, the famous Imam Abu Hanifa was jailed by the Khalifa because he disagreed. Is that accurate? Do you remember that?
I don't know. I mean, which Khalifa? I mean, I believe in the first four Khalifas, and then they became different kinds of Khalifas, which I don't think are necessarily spiritually perfect. Even there's a hadith that says that the first few Khalifas will be good Khalifas, rightly guided, and then there will be kings, and they'll become dictators, and they'll become worse and worse and worse. So if they did something bad, it wouldn't be surprising. That would be very much in line with what Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, prophesied would happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a Khalifa who did something wrong or was a dictator. Um, they forget, so talking about the leadership of the Ahmadiyya community, they forget their responsibility is not to boss, but to serve. I never get phone calls to help me from the leadership. They just tell me what I cannot do. And so there's a quote from Prophet Muhammad: the leader of a people is their servant. So I think people got the wrong end of the stick to the leadership. So let's get into something a bit more interesting. We've only got 15 minutes, but I'm going to go to like a conversation I had where people wanted to stop me. This is a very top person in the UK community. I've known, you know what, I'll probably say it here, all lovely people in their different ways, but if you do bad things, you're doing bad things, right? And it's going to be quite evident from this. So here is a typical example of a top UK Ahmadi community authority who would not say in public the orders he gives in private. I think this is a general thing. They would not be proud of the things they say if it was made public. He, like most Ahmadis, is a nice person, but too many nice Ahmadis are doing bad things. He gave me a phone call to censor me. He later messaged me with the following. So these are quotes. I'm definitely not mentioning his name. So I told him I'm going to do this live stream, and can you explain? I said I'm going to mention some of the things he said. I wanted him to give a response to why he was calling me from the UK, and he knows I'm in Jordan, and he doesn't have the authority. And I asked him a number of times, and he didn't tell me why he was doing it when he didn't have the authority to tell me what to do because he's in a different country. He said, and then he says to me, which is really hypocritical, he says, "You are not a UK Jamaat, that means Ahmadiyya community appointee, and live in Jordan. Not sure why you are focused on such matters," basically censorship. So the bracket stuff is me. Okay, so he's confused why I want to talk about censorship, and I'm not an appointee, so who am I to talk? Okay, so he has no problem being a hypocrite, bossing me in Jordan while he lives in the UK, telling me the UK has nothing to do with me as I live in Jordan. There's a hypocrisy there. He's like saying you're in Jordan, talking about the UK, but he's in the UK telling me what to do in Jordan. So UK Ahmadi community leaders think they are holy, being the chosen one, because you can only come up with this hypocrisy and lack of self, checking your own behavior if you think you're special. I think it is the opposite, as I gave up my leadership positions in the Ahmadi community so I wouldn't have to do wrong things like write deceptive reports to the Khalifa. So people who think they are holy just because they have a position, I think is unfortunately the opposite. I've had to give up loads of positions because they're asking me to do ridiculous things, pointless things, and give reports to look like something is happening when nothing is happening. And people should have some self-reflection, say, what on earth are we doing a lot of the time? The Quran puts the spiritual value of spreading. So I'm going to make another point, which is a lot of these people, they think they're holy. Now, here's an example of for them to question if they are truly holy. The Quran puts the spiritual value of spreading the truth above other good works. So this is Surah Al-Asr, you can see in the link. So there's these 4 categories. This is my understanding, and whatever, I'm not going to go into interpretation too much, but there's these 4 categories: believing, doing good words, spreading the truth, and essentially it's called sabr, but the deeper meaning of sabr is to lose your own desires, basically. And so as as logically, if you're unable, so this person, I know these people, all these different people and what they actually do, okay? And this particular person never been known for preaching, no videos, whatever. Now let's think about this logically, even if you don't accept that there is superior to be able to preach the truth than just do general good deeds. Let's think about this logically. If you're unable and not motivated to explain the benefits of Islam on a public video, you probably don't understand its value like someone who does. Like, you're not doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's pretty obvious stuff, right? I know some of the top donors in the UK Jamaat, right? Or at least one of them, right? Okay. But he would never go out and preach on the streets unless there was a group of people and they said, like, I would say to him, come on, let's go out. And he'd be like, no. And if somebody else said it, like a more important person, he'd be like, yeah, let's go with the group, right? So it's like, it makes you question. I'm sure that person, I know this person is very nice, the one who's a big donor and all this kind of stuff, right? But it's like you have to realize if you have these double standards about how you do things, can't be bothered to preach and you don't care about talking about spiritual things, there must be some other reason why you're giving so much money, because it doesn't add up. It's really simple. Okay, you're a lovely person. I'm sure all these people are lovely people doing good things in different ways, but it doesn't really add up. So you have to question your motives. That's always a good thing. I question my motives all the time. There's loads of bad things about me, definitely. Okay, so yeah, so this person who's telling me on the phone call, you should be doing this, and as if he's coming for it, and you'll see some of his other comments, it definitely shows that he seems to think he knows everything and I don't know anything, right? So how can he possibly be at this highest spiritual status when he doesn't even preach Islam, doesn't do YouTube videos, don't do anything, right? As far as I'm aware. Okay, so I want him to reflect on that because I've sent him this live stream. So censorship is so ingrained in the UK Ahmadiyya community leadership that they think only people they agree with, I'm quoting him, UK Jamaat appointees, he's the bigwigs, the important people, are allowed to express their opinions. Imagine a prime minister telling a journalist that he has no right to talk because the prime minister didn't appoint him. Doesn't make sense, right? You don't need to be appointed to talk. Doesn't add up. Okay, so the wrong attitude, I think a confused attitude, we need to fix that. He didn't even watch the video for which he thought I should be censored. So apparently somebody told him about a video that we did together, and he said, he's calling all the way to Jordan. It's like, you shouldn't do anything with Bashir. And I said, did you listen to that video? Because Bashir was really polite. Like, it doesn't matter. He said this, whatever. Like, please just watch the video at least, Anyway, here's another comment. He said, understand each line. So I showed him, here's a letter. I mean, I didn't have to show him the letter. He's got no authority to tell me what to do anyway. But I showed him the letter from the Khalifa. Okay. And then he says to me, understand each line of this letter, please, as if he understands it better, right? And explain this to your Tabligh context, the viewers, right? This is your guidance from the Khalifatul Masih, the Khalifa, right? Okay, so here's my comment. It is not humble that he assumed he understood the letter better than me. Step one. Next, why does he feel that he can tell me what to say in a live stream? This is entitlement. This entitlement is another form of censorship called dictatorship. Like, I'm going to tell you what to do, So it's another form of censorship. Another comment he made, this is a text message. So he meant, I don't think so that I am following the letter. So I missed out my comment. I didn't put the whole conversation. So I made a comment saying, I'm trying my best. That's what I said, right? To follow. And he said, I don't think you are, right? So he didn't feel I'm following the Khalifa. And he goes, as this thing is not a general question, I feel. So the Khalifa said, he made a lot of comments. He said, yeah, you should answer general questions. And now he's trying to twist the letter to say, oh, it's not a general question, censorship. I was like, and then my response to him, and I told him, like, I get the sense that he's getting annoyed that I'm responding to him in the WhatsApp. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to make a YouTube video because I feel like you don't appreciate me answering you because, I don't want to say too much. I try to be as polite as possible. So I think censorship and the fact that it suggests that we are a cult, us Ahmadi Muslims, are both big and general questions. Censorship is a general question. The fact that we have been called a cult for a long time is a general question. To twist the letter to try to make it as if this is not a topic to be talked about is really trying to push it and trying to control. Basically, it's quite obvious, and people should. I think you should kind of notice that. I think it's helpful to watch on a video what you've done. Like sometimes you don't have that inner reflection. Maybe somebody saying it will make you think twice. Oh, I'm trying to control. And there's a lot of notes. He's done this, and you know what? I didn't mention it, but since we're kind of running out of time, but it'd be interesting to. He did the same thing, but he probably wouldn't remember this. Like over 25 years ago, when I was going to ask a question of the fourth Khalifa, and I was going to ask the fourth Khalifa, should 18-year-olds be encouraged to marry? Then I might have put more around it because, you know, we as Muslims can't have sex outside marriage. Kids have sex when they're 15 in the West, you know, even younger, right? It's only natural to say that. The second Khalifa got married when he was 12 or something. So it's only natural. But he and another person said, that question is not going to the fourth Khalifa. And so, okay, interesting censorship. So he probably doesn't remember that, but I hope he listens to this and he'll kind of go, I've been doing this for a long time. Maybe I should change my ways. I have to respect Khalid in being an honest and open. Cool, you're welcome. Okay, so he was reasonable enough. Okay, so there's one leader, another guy. This is funny. I'm going to keep it to 1 hour, and then we'll do more if we want to next time. This is funny too. So one leader in the UK community, very important person, largely responsible for censorship, called me after I commented in a recent live stream of his that he was the only one on the panel not answering the viewers' questions, but instead answering his own. So people would say stuff, and then he'd just start talking about random stuff, right? And it's quite funny. He saw the comment. He knows me, I know him. So he called me up and he said, actually, I'm not calling about that. I'm calling about something else. But I'm not even going to go into that. So you know what? He did one thing that was reasonable. He said he was reasonable enough to accept that he had to change his policies. But who knows? These sentences are terrible. I don't know if I'll even fix this document. But basically, who knows when he'll fulfill his promises, okay? So I think I'm going to end it there because I hate going over time. I appreciate your time. I'm going to do it over 2 streams. I am going to link this document in the live stream so people can see what I'm going to say next time and they can think about it. So people who weren't prepared for this live stream, I'm going to do it again. So me and Bashir are doing a back and forth between our channels. I'm going to be on his channel next week, mainly talking about miracles, different kind of miracles. I'm not even sure which miracle we're going to talk about. Maybe the moon one or something. And then we're going to go back to mine, and then I do some different stuff. And I think the different stuff is going to be carrying on with this. There's a lot of differences between Ahmadi Muslims and other Muslims about, beliefs, like what are the jinn, what is the meaning of miracles and all this kind of stuff. So if you want to know when the rest of this will be discussed in 2 weeks, but you'll see what I'll be talking about. If there's much, there's a fair amount to talk. I think there's about another half of it left, right? So yeah. You know what? I like to have people jump in and ask questions directly in person. Like, if anybody wants to, do you have the link still? Or shall I? Do you have a few more minutes?
I actually have I got to run, so.
Okay, cool. That's cool. Maybe we'll do, yeah. So cool. So stick to your time, appreciate your time, and maybe on your stream next week we'll give like the last 10 minutes for people to jump in and ask questions directly in person. All right, peace be upon you. Thank you very much. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting what backlash I get. It can be pretty bad sometimes. We'll see what happens. All right. Okay, peace be upon you,
Sounds good.
everybody.
My only comment is next week we gotta do part two because I don't think we can wait 2 weeks to do a part two. So we'll just do the
Do you want
part
to
two
do it on mine or yours?
on yours. On yours.
Yours?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Next week then. I appreciate that. Cool. Let's do it. All right.
Sounds good, brother.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me. Peace be upon those who follow the guidance, and I'm out of here. All right, peace out.
Okay. Salam. Peace. Bye.